She waited at the bus stop, bones aching, heart heavier than her coat. Her daughter promised to come. But promises, like phone batteries and warm meals, fade when you're no longer convenient. What began as a late pickup turned into a spiral of abandonment, quiet betrayals, and one woman's quiet fight to reclaim her life. They said they'd pick me up. Allison had sounded so certain when she said it. "We'll swing by after your appointment, Mom. Just wait at the bus stop in front of the clinic. We'll grab you on the way back from IKEA." Her voice had that breezy, distracted quality it often did lately, like she was balancing a mental grocery list while talking to me. But I nodded, even though she couldn't see that over the phone, and said, "Okay, honey," because that's what I always said. The rheumatologist was running late, as they usually are. I sat in the waiting room watching a muted television broadcast about hurricane season in Florida, though I don't live anywhere near it. When they finally called my name, I pushed myself up with a little grunt and walked in slowly, knees stiff from the kind of cold that sneaks into your bones and stays there. Dr. Kapoor was polite and thorough, as always. He looked at my charts and frowned in that professional way that says everything without actually saying it. "We might want to increase your dosage," he offered, flipping pages. I nodded again. That's all I seem to do these days. Nod, agree, endure. He asked if I needed a ride home, and I told him, "My daughter's picking me up." He smiled like that settled it. When I stepped out, the air had a bite to it. The sky had turned that flat Minnesota gray that promises nothing good, and the wind tugged at my coat. I made my way to the bench just outside the clinic, painted metal, cold even through my skirt, and sat. It was exactly 2:57. I kept my hands tucked in my lap, gloves forgotten on the kitchen counter. 3 o'clock came and went. At first I thought nothing of it. Traffic, probably. Maybe they were still grabbing meatballs at the IKEA cafe. But when 3:15 ticked by, I pulled out my phone. 1 bar of battery. I tapped the screen. No messages. No missed calls. Just a cheerful wallpaper photo of my grandkids at Halloween, dressed like a pirate and a pumpkin. I tried calling. No answer. Left a voicemail. At 3:32, a text came in. Not even from Allison. From Jared, her husband. "Hey, sorry, running late. Can you just take the bus home? Appreciate it." That's it. No apology. No "love you," no heart emoji. I stared at the words, letting them sink in like cold water. The bus, I thought. I turned to look at the faded sign above the bench. Route 36, it said. But I remembered reading something last year. Didn't they cut this line? Budget issues or driver shortages, or some other excuse people make when they want to look responsible while being careless. A young woman walked past, earbuds in, scarf flapping behind her like a flag. I called out gently, "Excuse me, do you know if this bus still runs?" She slowed, looked at me like I was part of the scenery, then shrugged. "No idea. I Uber," she said, and kept walking. Uber. Right. I had the app once. My grandson installed it for me 2 phones ago, but I never figured it out. Besides, the screen was dimming now. My battery blinked red. I stood up slowly, knees protesting, and started walking. There was a Walmart about 1.5 miles down the road. I remembered it from when Allison made me pick up party supplies for Ruby's birthday. I figured if I could make it there, maybe someone could help me. Maybe they'd have a payphone. Do those even exist anymore? The wind picked up. I kept one hand on my bag, the other wrapped around myself like that would keep the chill out. My shoes were the kind that slip on easily, which also meant they didn't hold much warmth. Every few blocks I stopped, pretending to check my phone, just so I could catch my breath without looking pathetic. By the time I reached the Walmart parking lot, the world around me was dull and metallic. Cars honked in the distance. The building's lights blinked through the dusk like a promise. I gripped the handle of the glass door and stepped inside, blinking against the warmth and fluorescent hum. Inside, no one noticed me. No one ever really does. I stood just inside the entrance, trying not to look like a lost child or a shoplifter. A teenage employee in a blue vest eyed me and looked away. I made my way toward a bench by the pharmacy, sat down again, and let the warmth reach my bones. My phone was dead now, and I was still waiting. I don't remember standing up. 1 minute I was on that pharmacy bench, hands folded like I was praying for someone to notice me, and the next I was being told I couldn't stay there unless I was waiting for a prescription. The girl who said it couldn't have been more than 19. Polite, but tired. That retail, tired. "Ma'am, do you need help with something?" she asked, eyes scanning me the way people scan spilled milk. Something to deal with, not something to understand. I opened my mouth to answer, and the words came out slower than I meant. "I just need to charge my phone. Maybe call a ride." She hesitated. "You can try electronics. They have displays. But we're not really supposed to let customers charge personal stuff." She didn't finish the sentence, just let it trail off into the overhead buzz of the fluorescent lights. I nodded, because that's what I do, and walked toward the electronics section. They didn't have anything set up. No demo chargers, no empty sockets. I stood there, phone in hand, trying to will a solution into existence. The air smelled like plastic packaging and cleaning fluid. My knees ached. My pride ached more. "Need a hand?" a voice said behind me. I turned and saw a young man, mid-20s, tall, hoodie under his blue vest. His name tag read, Tyrell. He wasn't smiling, but he wasn't suspicious either. Just present. That alone felt like a miracle. I hesitated. My phone died. My ride never showed. I just need to call someone. He gestured toward the back. "We've got a power strip in the stockroom. I'll let you borrow a cord if you don't got one." I followed him through a door marked Employees Only, like I belonged there. He didn't say much, just cleared a space near a dusty outlet and handed me a slightly frayed charging cable. I plugged in. The screen lit up slowly, like even it was reluctant to be awake. Tyrell leaned against a stack of crates. "They just leave you out there?" I didn't answer right away. "They're family," I said finally, like that explained anything. Maybe it did. His face didn't change, but he nodded slowly. When my phone came to life, I opened the rideshare app my grandson had installed and tried to remember the password. Wrong. Again. And again. My hands trembled as I typed. It locked me out. I set it down, breathing carefully through the noise building in my ears. Tyrell pulled out his own phone. "Where you headed?" "Home," I said. "Near Hillside and Thorn. Not far." He tapped a few times, then looked up. "It's a mess out there. Rain, traffic. No one's taking rides for under $30 right now. And even then, surge pricing." I didn't have $30 in cash, and I wasn't about to ask my daughter for help. I could already hear her voice. "Mom, we're swamped. Can you just figure it out? You always do." Like that was a compliment. He must have seen something in my face because he said, "You hungry?" "No," I lied. He handed me a small pack of peanut butter crackers anyway. "It's break food, but they owe me more than this job's worth." He gave me a lopsided shrug and walked back through the swinging door, leaving me alone with a blinking phone, a dwindling sense of dignity, and crackers that tasted like sawdust and kindness. I stayed there for maybe half an hour. The app never worked. The battery dropped again. The rain outside had turned heavy and deliberate, like it meant to keep me there. My fingers were stiff. I needed to move. I thanked Tyrell before I left. He didn't make a big deal out of it, just waved and said, "Be safe." Outside, I kept my bag close, my head down. The sidewalk gleamed with rain. I walked slower than before. No destination, just the general direction of home. 1 block, then another. Then the curb caught me. I don't even know how. Maybe my shoe slid. Maybe my knees just gave out. One second I was upright, the next I was on the pavement, the wet biting through my coat. I didn't cry out. There wasn't enough air in me. A man in a leather jacket passed, looked down, and kept walking. Another woman crossed the street entirely. No one wants to get involved. I'd probably be the same, until someone did stop. She was maybe 30, looked like a nurse. She crouched beside me, eyes serious but calm. "Are you hurt?" "My pride," I muttered. She smiled tightly. "Anything broken?" I shook my head. She called an ambulance anyway. When they arrived, I heard someone say, "Possible fracture," and everything blurred after that. I didn't argue. I let them strap me in, wheel me into the warmth. The ride was short, the lights too bright. The air smelled like plastic and antiseptic. At the hospital, they ran tests. They gave me ibuprofen and wrapped my wrist in a bandage that felt more like a suggestion than support. "Just a sprain," the nurse said. "Too cheerful for the hour. You're lucky you didn't break anything." I nodded and murmured something polite. I'd been lucky a lot in life. Lucky to outlive my husband. Lucky to survive childbirth 3 times. Lucky to be the one everyone expected to carry the extra weight without breaking. The ER was half empty, humming with the soft shuffle of overnighters and the quiet complaints of people who couldn't afford to be sick during business hours. I sat on the edge of the cot, coat still damp from the rain, purse clutched tight in my lap. My fingers felt numb, and not just from the fall. One of the aides came over with a clipboard. "Do you have someone to pick you up, ma'am?" I gave her Allison's number. She dialed, stepping away to make the call. I watched her mouth move, read the furrow in her brow. Then she came back. She said she's got the kids in bed and her husband's working early. She asked if you could take a lift. Or, she said, maybe you could stay the night there? There meant here, in this chair. In this room that smelled like sanitizer and old coffee. I didn't answer right away. The nurse blinked like she was waiting for permission to be uncomfortable. "We can keep you until morning," she said, "but you'll have to vacate by 7. I nodded again. My head felt heavy on my neck. "That'll be fine." She handed me a warmed blanket and a small styrofoam cup of apple juice, like I was a child or someone about to be flown somewhere. I drank it slowly, each sip catching on the back of my throat. Then I laid back, wrapped in the blanket, shoes still on, and stared at the ceiling until my eyes stopped trying. The hospital doesn't sleep. It breathes. Machines chirp. Rubber soles squeak. Conversations rise and fall like waves. I slept in pieces, waking every time someone coughed or a door clicked open. Around 5, they brought in a man moaning about his chest. That ended sleep for everyone. By 7, I was upright again, shoes soggy, back aching, wrist pulsing dull and steady. They let me use the staff phone to call a cab company. 4 tries before someone answered. The soonest they could get to me was maybe 45 minutes, maybe more. I thanked them, hung up, and sat by the window near the main entrance. The sun had barely risen. Everything outside looked blue and unforgiving. Eventually, the cab came. The driver didn't say much, which I appreciated. I gave him the address and sank into the cracked back seat, breathing in that warm, synthetic taxi smell, like vinyl and tired stories. When he pulled up to my house, I paid in cash. Small miracle I had enough. The front door stuck a little as I opened it, probably swollen from all the rain. Inside, the house felt stale, like it had been holding its breath. I dropped my purse on the hall table, kicked off my shoes, and turned on the light. Nothing. I tried the lamp in the living room. Still nothing. My breath caught. I checked the breaker, though I knew better. The power bill. I'd passed the envelope a week ago, left it on the counter, told myself I'd handle it after the doctor's appointment. Or maybe Allison said she would. She'd offered to switch everything to automatic payments last year. "Easier," she said. "One less thing for you to track." I should have tracked it. I rummaged in the kitchen drawer for the flashlight I kept for storms. Found it next to some old batteries and a single pack of saltine crackers. The flashlight worked, dimly. I carried it into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, cradling my wrapped wrist and wondering if this counted as self-neglect in the eyes of the state. That thought stuck with me longer than I liked. Later that morning, when the sun gave enough light, I checked the mailbox. A letter from the HOA, another from the water department, one from the county assessor's office, and something with my name handwritten on the front in a tight, careful script I didn't recognize. Inside, a trifold brochure for a senior living facility called Meadow Pines. The kind of place with beige walls and floral drapes. A sticky note was attached. Might be time to think ahead. La Versailles. A. I stared at that note for a long time. I tried to remember the last time my daughter signed anything with love and didn't mean out of convenience. The power stayed off all day. I made a sandwich from the last of the peanut butter and sat in the living room, wrapped in 2 coats. My phone buzzed once around noon. A text from Allison. Just checking in. Hope everything's okay. Sorry about yesterday. We were just wiped. Let me know if you need anything. I didn't reply. What was I going to say? That I'd spent the night on a cot surrounded by strangers? That my house didn't have electricity? That her little sticky note felt more like a veiled eviction notice than a concern? Instead, I walked to the bathroom, stared at my own reflection, hair flat, face drawn, a bruise blooming on my wrist. I turned off the flashlight, let the mirror go dark, and walked back to the living room. Then I called the number for the power company and asked what it would take to put the account back in my name. Getting the power turned back on wasn't complicated, just irritating. I had to wait on hold for nearly 40 minutes, listening to looped music that sounded like it was designed specifically to make you hang up. When someone finally answered, her voice was sweet and efficient. Too young to imagine why an old woman would need to prove she still owned her own house. Yes, it looks like the account was transferred last year, she said. To an Allison Granger? That's my daughter, I replied, keeping my voice even. Would you like to transfer it back? Yes, I said. Immediately. I answered her questions, read off numbers, spelled my name twice, confirmed my social security number like it was some secret code I'd barely earned the right to say aloud. When it was done, she thanked me and said the power would be back within the hour. I hung up and stood in the quiet. It felt like reclaiming something. Something small, but mine. A few minutes later, I walked out to the garage. I hadn't been in there in months. The air smelled like rust and motor oil. I stepped carefully over a pile of toys that had never belonged to me. Old strollers, a high chair, a box of mismatched baby shoes. Allison said she'd come get soon. In the far corner sat the lawnmower, right where I'd left it. The pull cord was still broken. I didn't try to fix it, just stood and stared. There was a time I would have figured it out, Googled a solution, maybe asked the neighbor for a wrench. But now even the thought of starting the thing made my back twinge. I turned away, walked back into the house, and left the garage light on. An hour later, the lights came back. The fridge hummed again. I flipped the switch by habit and let the ceiling fans stir the air like a sign of life. The relief was quiet, not joyful, like breathing again after holding it too long. I didn't tell Allison. I didn't tell anyone. Instead, I made soup from a can, took a slow bath, and put on my oldest nightgown, the soft one with the fading print and the tiny tear at the hem. It felt like armor. The next morning, a knock at the door. Not frantic, not polite, just steady. I opened it to find a man I didn't recognize. Khakis, a visitor badge, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Taylor? He asked. Yes. I'm with Adult Protective Services. We received a report from a family member expressing concern about your well-being. I just need to ask a few questions and take a quick look around. Of course they did. I let him in. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. I'd wiped every surface before breakfast, like I expected an inspection. He looked around, noted the working lights, the stocked fridge, the wrapped wrist. Do you feel safe in your home? Yes. Do you have anyone helping you regularly? Number, I don't need anyone. He paused, studied me. Do you know why the report was filed? I did, but I shrugged. He jotted notes, asked a few more questions, then left me with a pamphlet and a neutral smile. Just let us know if anything changes. When the door shut behind him, I stood there for a moment. Then I took the pamphlet and dropped it in the trash, right between the expired yogurt and a catalog I hadn't asked for. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang again. This time it was Kayla, my granddaughter. 19, baggy sweatshirt, headphones tangled in one hand. She didn't smile. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped aside. She walked straight to the kitchen, dropped her bag on the chair and said, I heard Mom talking last night. She and Dad were going through papers. I waited. She said something about the deed, about getting it transferred before Christmas. She told him not to spook you. My throat tightened. I think they're trying to take the house, Kayla said. I don't think it's about helping anymore. For a second, I just stood there staring at Kayla, like she was speaking another language. Maybe because it had been so long since anyone in this family told me the truth without dressing it up in concern or obligation. She looked nervous, like she expected me to snap, or deny it, or wave it away. I didn't do any of those things. I just pulled out a chair, sat down across from her, and said, Tell me everything you heard. She rubbed at her wrist like it itched. I couldn't hear it all. Just, Mom was saying something about how you've been slipping. That maybe it'd be time to get legal control over stuff before it got worse. She told Dad to be careful what he said around you until the paperwork was done. My chest felt tight. Not angry. Not even surprised. Just compressed. Like my body was trying to shrink itself to make room for the betrayal. I'm sorry, Kayla added quickly. I didn't know what to do, but when I saw your name on the papers, like they'd already started something, I thought you should know. I nodded slowly. You were right to come. She looked almost relieved. I can stay a while if that's okay? That was more than okay. We spent the rest of the afternoon in quiet bursts of conversation. I showed her the HOA letters, the power bill mess, the flyer for the senior home with Allison's sticky note still attached. She winced when she read it. God, she whispered, that's so manipulative. She asked if I had any documents, deeds, bank records, powers of attorney. I did. Tucked in an old accordion folder in the back of my closet, behind a stack of unused wrapping paper and a half-empty box of holiday ornaments. We went through them, page by page. Some were old, some out of date. But one thing was clear. Last fall, I'd signed a durable power of attorney form that gave Allison full legal authority to manage my financial matters in case of incapacity. At the time, I was recovering from bronchitis. I remember she brought over soup, handled my Medicare re-enrollment, and said, Mom, just sign it. It's just in case. I signed without reading, because that's what I did, because she was my daughter. Now Kayla read it aloud, and each word landed like a pin against my skin. They can sell your house, she said finally. They can move your money. They just have to say you're not mentally sound. And they've already tried, I added. She looked up, startled. A P.S. They sent a man. Said someone reported me for self-neglect. Allison's already laying the groundwork. We sat in silence for a moment. Then we fight, Kayla said. It was strange. How easily she said it. Like it wasn't even a question. Do you know a lawyer? She asked. I didn't. Not anymore. My old friend, Marlene, used to know someone, but she'd passed last winter, and I hadn't spoken to her son in years. Then I remembered something. There's a free legal aid clinic at the church downtown, I said. They do consultations for seniors. I went there once with a neighbor after her husband passed. Kayla stood up. Let's go tomorrow. That night she stayed over. I made soup from scratch, the good kind, with garlic and chicken and fresh thyme. We sat on the couch, shared a blanket, and watched an old baking show on my laptop. She told me about her classes, her art projects, how she hated being stuck in the house with Allison since dropping out of college last semester. I didn't pry. I just listened. At one point, she looked over and said, "I think they underestimate you." I smiled. They always have. The next morning we went to the clinic, a quiet, warm room inside a building that used to be a rectory. The man who helped us was in his 70s, bald with big glasses and the calm voice of someone who's heard every sad story twice. His name was Mr. Livingston. He listened, didn't interrupt, and when we finished, he said, "I can help you file a revocation of the power of attorney, and we can send notice to your daughter that you're retracting all financial permissions immediately." He had us sign papers. He explained our options. He didn't sugarcoat anything. "If they've started transferring assets," he said, "you need to act fast." Kayla helped me call the bank. We put a freeze on withdrawals. Then we went to the county records office and filed a notice on the deed, flagging any attempts at ownership change. By the end of the day, we'd done more than I thought possible in 48 hours. We came home tired but wired. I made coffee at 5 p.m., which I never do, and we sat in the kitchen like two conspirators after a heist. When Kayla left that evening, she hugged me tight and said, "I'll come back tomorrow. We'll figure out the rest." I stood in the doorway after she left, watching the street. My house didn't look different. The lawn was still a mess. The porch still creaked. But something had shifted. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was waiting to be replaced. The letter came on a Thursday. Thick envelope, county seal in the corner. I sat with it in my lap for a long time before opening it, my hands dry and stiff from the morning cold. Inside, a notice of petition. Allison had filed for guardianship. Stated grounds: cognitive decline, self-neglect, and inability to manage personal affairs. There was even an affidavit from Jared attached, claiming I'd forgotten to pay property taxes and had become isolated and unstable in recent months. I read every word, then folded the papers neatly and set them on the kitchen table. She wasn't even going to call first. That afternoon, I called Mr. Livingston. He'd seen it before. "She's trying to prove you're incompetent," he said calmly. "We'll contest it, but the hearing will be soon. You'll need witnesses, documentation." "I have both," I said. Kayla came over that evening, and when I handed her the envelope, she didn't ask if it was real. She just asked, "What do we do next?" In the days that followed, we worked like a small, well-oiled team. I gathered every utility bill I'd paid, printed the bank logs showing my own transactions. We got letters from my doctor, my pharmacist, even Tyrell, who remembered me clearly and agreed to write a statement describing the day at Walmart. Kayla wrote her own account and said she'd testify in person if needed. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. I didn't sleep much the night before, but I wasn't nervous. Not really. Just steady. I laid out my best clothes, ironed a blouse I hadn't worn in years, brushed my hair and used mascara for the first time since Harold died. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see someone fragile. I saw someone who still had lines left to draw. The courtroom wasn't like TV. No drama, no gavel slamming. Just a small room with too many chairs and fluorescent lights that made everyone look tired. Allison sat 2 rows ahead, Jared beside her. She didn't turn around. When the judge asked her to present her case, she started with the voice I knew too well, the sweet, reasonable one she used with customer service reps and school counselors. She talked about my fall, about the power outage, about her worry. Then she turned and said, "I just want my mother to be safe. I think we can all agree she needs support." The judge nodded, then turned to me. Mrs. Taylor, would you like to respond? I stood. Not fast, but steady. I've lived in my home for 38 years, I said. I raised 3 children, buried 1 husband, survived cancer, and made my own income until I was 72. I sprained my wrist because I was left on a curb after a doctor's appointment my daughter promised to pick me up from. I've kept records of my finances, maintained my home, and cooked my own meals. I've asked for help. What I haven't done is surrender. The judge blinked. I continued. My daughter filed paperwork behind my back to transfer ownership of my home. She encouraged a report to Adult Protective Services to lay the foundation for this very hearing. That is not concern. That's control. I turned toward Kayla. My granddaughter came to me when she realized what was happening. She's helped me every step of the way. Because support isn't silence. It's honesty. The judge asked a few more questions. Read the documentation. Listen to Tyrell's statement. Read Kayla's letter. And then, just like that, it was over. Petition denied, he said simply. All financial authority to be restored to Mrs. Taylor. No evidence of incapacity. Court adjourned. Allison didn't wait to speak to me afterward. She brushed past, heels clicking sharp against the floor, Jared trailing behind. Neither of them looked back. Kayla and I stepped outside. The sky was bright and cloudless. I exhaled, long and slow. What now? She asked. I didn't answer right away, just looked around the parking lot, then down at the set of keys in my hand. One of them was to a storage unit I'd rented the week before. The other, to a small furnished condo in Flagstaff, Arizona. 2 bedrooms, no stairs, plenty of sun. I'm leaving, I said finally. This weekend. Kayla blinked. For good? I nodded. I've been waiting for permission to live my own life again. Turns out I didn't need anyone's. I handed her a small envelope. This has the new address. If you ever want to come, there's always room. She took it carefully, like it weighed more than paper should. Back home I packed lightly. Photos. Cookware I actually liked. My books. I left the rest. I didn't tell anyone else. I didn't write a letter or make a speech. On Saturday morning, just before sunrise, I ordered a car, stepped into the back seat, and watched as the house I once called mine disappeared behind me. And I didn't look back.